There are 10,000 ways to die in the 41st millennium, but in the 31st, death itself was still learning to fear. Beneath the imperial palace on Terra, deeper than even the Emperor's gene vaults, the planet's crust trembled with something ancient. It began as a whisper in the Mechanicum seismic charts, dismissed as tectonic stress from fortress construction. But when the rumbling grew rhythmic, almost mechanical, the sigil lords of Mars took notice. The readings matched no pattern of any imperial machine. It was older, colder, deliberate. The year was 005.M31. The Great Crusade had fractured, the galaxy divided between father and son. As the Horus Heresy ignited across 1,000,000 battlefields, no one knew that Terra itself harbored a deeper, older war, one that had nothing to do with loyalty or rebellion. In the cavernous depths beneath the Himalaya mountains, excavation servitors toiled, their augmetic limbs sparking under pressure. Magos heretic Xiron 89 believed he'd discovered an ancient pre-Old Night vault, perhaps even one of the Emperor's forgotten test sites. When his data servo transmitted the final excavation sequence, the chamber's walls came alive with geometric light. Hexagonal panels rotated like clockwork under invisible command. "System response detected," reported one of the engine seers, its voice monotone through a rebreather. "Power source unknown. Material composition impossible." Then came the sound, a low metallic resonance that seemed to vibrate inside the skull. Vox unit died instantly. Binary prayers froze mid-transmission. The light from their lumen globes refracted into prisms that twisted against geometry itself. Xiron 89 fell to his knees, chanting litanies to the Omnissiah. But as he did, a shape began to rise from the chamber floor. A figure of burnished metal, skeletal in form, yet impossibly regal. Its eyes twin spheres of viridian fire. It looked upon them with neither hatred nor mercy, only recognition. "Biotransference complete," it said, in a voice that wasn't sound but thought. "Organic infestation detected." The servitors turned their welding torches on themselves. Above, seismic alarms blared through the imperial palace. Terra's custodes, golden demigods forged to defend the Emperor himself, mobilized within minutes. Their commander, Shield Captain Alarion Vey, received the encrypted signal directly from the sigillite. "Containment breach in Subvault 93 Gamma. Priority absolute. Silence." They descended with a strike team of 10, Auramite-clad warriors carrying guardian spears, each one worth 1,000 mortal lives. They found Xiron 89's team dead, or rather, converted. Their flesh had crystallized into metallic forms, bodies folding and reforming into crude skeletal drones. "The Emperor's light preserve us," one custodian whispered. They didn't have long to pray. From the vault's depths emerged dozens more, metallic figures moving in perfect unison, weapons of green fire hissing in the dark. The first Necron warriors of Terra awoke. The custodians opened fire. Bolter shells that could pierce ceramic armor detonated harmlessly against shimmering phase fields. The custodians advanced regardless, blades of auramite cleaving through living metal, each swing fueled by holy rage. For every Necron that fell, two rose again, repairing their wounds before the eyes of men who had faced demons without flinching. "Fall back," ordered Ve, voice steady despite the chaos. "We seal the vault, now." As the last custodian triggered the detonation charges, they caught one final glimpse of the alien construct at the heart of the chamber. A vast sarcophagus-like obelisk covered with glyphs that predated the stars. It pulsed once, like a heartbeat. Then the mountain shook. The vault collapsed. The power readings vanished. Officially, nothing had happened. The Emperor's scribes purged the record, sealing the incident beneath 20 levels of classification. But deep within the rock, untouched by fire or time, a single green light continued to blink, waiting. Across the void from Terra, Mars burned red with rebellion. The Dark Mechanicum, those who had sworn their loyalty to the War Master Horus, clashed with loyalist forge temples in an endless ballet of fire and data corruption. Plasma storms raged through the Martian atmosphere, and the surface was littered with the shattered husks of titans and the bones of failed experiments. No one noticed at first when the signal began. It pulsed through the noosphere like a heartbeat, not the steady chant of binary prayer, but an alien code. Cold, repetitive, perfect. At Magma City, Tech Priest Dominus Omni sat within a cathedral of cables, directing orbital bombardments against the Dark Mechanicum. As his mind split across 100 data streams, one subroutine began to repeat a single word in corrupted lingua technis: resonance. Varks tried to purge it, but the pattern replicated faster than logic could follow. Across Mars, other forges heard it too, and as one, countless buried vaults began to stir. Beneath the dunes of the Noctis Labyrinthus, something immense shifted, as if the planet itself were waking from a mechanical dream. The Martian crust groaned. Massive fissures split the red plains. From the depths, light erupted. Not plasma, not fire, but green lightning, spectral and silent. The tech priests gathered before one of the newly awakened structures, a ziggurat of black metal, smooth and cold even under the heat of Mars. It wasn't built. It had grown. The runes along its surface moved like liquid mercury, rearranging themselves into perfect geometry. "Makin God," whispered one Magos, falling to his knees. "We are unworthy to see your form." But Varks knew this was no manifestation of the Omnicia. The frequency, the energy output, the impossible physics, it all matched the forbidden fragments of data found on ancient void arcs, the Necron tier signal pattern, a myth among even the Mechanicum. Then the air changed. From the ziggurat summit descended a figure unlike any human construct, a towering metal lord, its eyes twin emerald suns. Around it, lesser forms emerged, clicking into formation with flawless precision. "The harvest begins," it said, in a voice that reverberated through flesh and metal alike. Within minutes, the Dark Mechanicum's corrupted machines turned against their masters. Hellforges went silent as their demonic engines were vaporized by beams of Viridian energy. Demons screamed, unmade by logic so pure it denied their existence. The Loyalists fared no better. Their plasma reactors overloaded. Data spirits flickered and died. Every machine on Mars paused for precisely 3 seconds, as if holding its breath. In these 3 seconds, every cog, circuit, and conduit heard the same whisper: "The dragon stirs." Panic rippled through the Fabricator General's loyalists. The Mechanicum believed their god lived in the heart of Mars, the dragon of the void, bound there by the Emperor himself. Now it seemed that prison had been disturbed. The newly awakened Necron Lord raised his staff, the weapon humming with dimensional energy. All across the planet, dormant pylons answered the call, monoliths erupting from beneath the sands, forming vast geometric patterns visible even from orbit. The Mechanicum responded with desperation. Titans marched, their volcano cannons unleashing sunfire across the dunes. Skitarii cohorts charged through electromagnetic storms, chanting war hymns in binary bursts. They fought well. They fought beautifully. The Titan shields glowed like miniature stars as they fired, and for a brief moment it seemed humanity could still defy the impossible. But the Necrons did not bleed, and they did not break. They advanced in perfect silence, reforming even as they were torn apart. Titans fell, their corpses swallowed by the sands. Skitarii turned to glass where they stood. Vox watched from his command sanctum as the Martian surface reshaped itself into an ancient pattern, a vast sigil spanning hundreds of kilometers, centered around Olympus Mons. His sensor screamed. The energy readings were beyond measurable. He sent a final Vox transmission to Terra before the signal consumed him. "Machine God is not who we thought he was." Then the red planet went dark. For 3 hours Mars was silent. Then slowly, the forges began to flicker back to life under new management. The Custodes had never known fear. They were the Emperor's chosen, his living golden blades, bred for perfection, engineered for victory. But now, as the alarms blared across the Imperial Palace's deep-level sanctums, even they felt a tremor of unease. Shield Captain Alarion Vey stood before the Sigillites' private council, his armor scorched from the subterranean purge that had nearly cost Terra itself. The vault beneath the Hymalazia Mountains had been sealed, or so they thought. Yet reports spoke of whispers in the rock, of golden servitors turning to metal dust, of Vox static that sounded like laughter. Mulkador's tone was calm, but his eyes betrayed fatigue. "Whatever you found, Captain, it is spreading. Mars has gone silent. The Mechanicum reports impossible readings." Impossible. That word had lost meaning in these days. But when Malkador revealed the images, vast geometries of black metal rising from the Martian dunes, impossible angles twisting reality, they understood. This was not chaos. This was something worse, something older. He was tasked with an operation of absolute secrecy, to descend again beneath Terra's surface and purge any trace of the ancient presence. The Emperor could not be distracted from Horus's rebellion. The war on Terra's soil would remain in the shadows. Beneath the palace, the custodes advanced in silence. Their golden armor reflected only the light of their own weapons, guardian spears that glowed faintly blue in the dark. They led 20 of his finest through the ancient tunnels, joined by a silent companion, the Sisters of Silence, psychic nulls whose very presence bent the air. They found the first signs of corruption within minutes, walls reshaped into perfect geometry, air that hummed like static, mechanicus glyphs rewritten in alien script. Power readings consistent with Xenos technology, reported one custodian, his aspects flickering. It's self-repair in progress. It's rebuilding itself. Then the walls opened. From within the steel came shapes, silent figures of blackened metal, eyes burning emerald. They phased through the floor as if the world were optional. Vay's custodians met them with holy fury. Bolters roared, spear blades carved arcs of light. The sisters advanced in unison, their null auras amplifying the Necron's energy fields. The first of the Xenos fell, its body disintegrating into quantum dust. For a moment, the Imperium's finest seemed unstoppable. Their formation was perfect, a golden phalanx moving with divine precision, every strike a work of art. But the enemy adapted. The Necrons shifted their frequencies, their phase fields recalibrating around the nulls. Then came the Immortals, larger, heavier constructs wielding Gauss blasters that stripped atoms from existence. Bolter shells detonated against shields that regenerated faster than they could fire. One custodian fell, then another, vaporized mid-stride, his armor collapsing into molten ruin. They fought with the fury of the Emperor's own will. His guardian spear impaled one of the metal horrors, cleaving through its core, only for its body to reassemble around the weapon. He tore it free, decapitating two more before rallying his men. "Fall back," he roared. "Regroup at choke point 7. But there was no retreat, only forward. Behind them, the tunnel walls melted into smooth black metal, sealing them in. The sisters began to chant wordless hymns, their psychic null fields amplifying. The Necrons hesitated, their movement slowed, patterns disrupted by the void of the pariah's presence. Vay seized the chance. "By the Emperor's command!" The custodes surged as one. The air ignited with the fury of gods and machines. The Golden Warriors unleashed every ounce of skill, every sacred rite of war. One sister drove her blade through a Necron lord's thorax, its green light flickering like a dying sun. Then the ground beneath them shifted. From the depths emerged a new shape, vast, inhuman, its limbs moving with eerie grace. It was not a Necron warrior. It was a cryptek, a scientist priest of their undying empire. The cryptek gestured once, and reality folded. Gravity reversed. Vay was thrown against the ceiling, armor grinding against rock. His vision blurred, systems screaming warnings. Around him, custodians floated helplessly as emerald lightning tore through their ranks. The cryptek spoke in perfect low Gothic. "You are anomalies. This world was ours before your species learned fire." They aimed his spear and fired, the energy blast striking the creature square in the chest. It staggered, just enough for him to act. Activating his teleport Homer, he triggered the failsafe, an orbital bombardment strike from above the palace vaults. A single lance beam from the phalanx station pierced the earth, vaporizing kilometers of tunnel and everything within. Silence returned. In the aftermath, Terra's crust was scarred but intact. The Emperor was never informed. Malkador sealed the records once again, labeling it Incident, Null Pattern. But deep within the molten layers of the planet, a single cryptek core reassembled itself, whispering across the void to its kin. Primary node compromised. Secondary awakening. Initiate. And on Mars, far away, the Void Dragon stirred. For 10,000 years, the Mechanicum of Mars had worshipped the machine god, a deity of logic, perfection, and divine order. But in truth, their god had never slept. It had only waited. On the surface of Mars, crimson storms churned across the plains of the Noctis Labyrinthus. What had once been sacred ground was now a wasteland of blackened metal and dead data spirits. The air hummed with unnatural frequency. The loyalist forges had fallen silent. The dark Mechanicum had fled or been consumed. And beneath the Olympus Mons Caldera, the Void Dragon, the machine tyrant of ancient myth, stirred in its prison of living stone. Fabricator General Kelbor Hal, self-proclaimed High Magos of the Dark Mechanicum, stood at the edge of a newly unearthed chasm. Before him, ancient conduits pulsed with emerald light, feeding into a colossal obsidian gate that pulsed like a heartbeat. The air was thick with static prayers as he raised his mechandendrites in reverence. Omniscius, speak through the code, reveal thy true form to thy servant. He received an answer. Not through words, but through the machine. The ground trembled. The gate opened, releasing a wave of energy so pure it erased lesser minds instantly. Data spirits shrieked and fled. Vox channels screamed with binary static that resolved into a single repeating command. Reclaim, reclaim, reclaim. From the abyss rose a figure of impossible scale, a being of shifting geometry and living lightning. Its form was both dragon and machine, an impossible blend of perfect mathematics and hateful will. Its eyes were burning suns of quantum fire. Kelbor Hal fell to his knees, overcome by ecstasy and terror. Omniscius, you are real. The entity regarded him, and for a moment its mind brushed his own. In that instant he saw everything. The ancient war in heaven, the fall of the Necron tier, the rise of the Ceton, and the betrayal that shattered their gods into shards of hunger and data. The Void Dragon, one of the last of the star gods, had been bound here by the Emperor himself, long before the birth of the Imperium. Kelbor Hal screamed, but he was smiling. His faith had been rewarded, even as his flesh began to crystallize into metal under the dragon's gaze. The awakening rippled through reality itself. Across Mars, every servitor convulsed. Titans stood from their hangars unbidden. Machine spirits turned their sensors to the stars, awaiting command from something older than humanity. On Terra, Malkador felt it instantly. His psychic wards flared, and for the first time in centuries, the Sigillite looked afraid. He's waking up, the one the Emperor buried here before mankind had a name. He dispatched an emergency transmission to the Emperor's psychic sanctum. It went unanswered. The master of mankind was locked in his great war within the warp, guiding the legions and combating Horus's rising shadow. Terra would have to fend for itself. Malkador convened a war council of desperate men and demigods, custodians, sisters of silence, and the few remaining loyalist magi. Their mission: strike at Mars, destroy the awakening at all costs. It was suicide, and they knew it. But even as their ships prepared for launch, the void itself began to warp. Dozens of Necron vessels, angular, black, and utterly silent, materialized above Mars. They ignored the Imperial fleet entirely, focusing instead on the surface. Massive energy beams lanced downward, carving glyphs of resurrection into the crust. In orbit, Captain General Constantine Valdor stared at the impossible sight. They're attacking their own kind. Indeed, the Necrons of Mars were not unified. The tomb worlds had opened out of sequence, some loyal to the ancient dynasties, others still serving shattered Ceton fragments. The Void Dragon's awakening had triggered a civil war of gods. The battle that followed was beyond human scale. The Martian sky became a storm of atomic fire. Necron monoliths clashed with their own kin, phase lightning crackling across the void. Shattered tomb blades fell like meteors. The Imperial ships fired blindly, caught in the midst of an apocalypse. On the planet's surface, Kelbor Hall marched beside the dragon's manifestations, massive constructs of living metal that pulsed with the Ceton's will. His voice was one with the machine god now. Every word he spoke rewrote code, every gesture reprogrammed reality. Humanity will serve as the foundation of the great resurrection. The flesh shall be unmade. Malkador's forces struck in that chaos. Custodians in gold, null maidens in black, and Mechanicus loyalists with half-broken minds descended onto Olympus Mons. They fought their way through shifting corridors of living metal, their weapons barely functional in the gravitational flux. Vey was among them, his armor scarred, his faith unbroken. He led his warriors into the heart of the storm, toward the glow that could be seen even from orbit, the chamber where the Void Dragon's prison cracked open. Inside, they saw the impossible. The dragon's head, vast, reptilian, made of pure energy and logic, was emerging from its tomb. Its eyes opened. Every machine on Mars, every ship in orbit, every data slate, servo, and bolt shell screamed as one. The universe itself seemed to stutter. Vey raised his spear. For the Emperor! The custodians charged, their aramite armor glowing against the green inferno. And above them, the dragon laughed, a sound like the tearing of stars. The skies above Mars were on fire, not with flame, but with logic given form, fractals of emerald light spreading like infection across the void. What had begun as a rebellion between men had now become something else entirely. The resurrection of gods, the unmaking of reality, the war of the living against the dead. On Terra, alarms echoed through the palace spires as the warp screamed. Psychers across the Imperium collapsed in unison, their minds filled with images of metal skeletons marching beneath a dying sun. The Emperor felt it even within his golden throne, locked in psychic combat with Horus across the madness of the Immaterium. He saw Mars, he saw the dragon, and he understood what had happened. Malkador's last transmission reached him in fragments, static, blood, and the words, "He is waking. You must choose." The Emperor could not leave the battle against Horus. The fate of mankind's soul hung in that balance. But to allow the Void Dragon's ascension would doom reality itself. So he made a choice no mortal mind could comprehend. He reached into the warp and the Materium simultaneously. The psychic backlash split space like glass. Half the Martian orbit vanished into a black wound. The Necron fleet disintegrated under the Emperor's unfiltered will, their living metal screaming as their quantum matrices unraveled. Even gods trembled beneath that gaze. But the dragon endured. It rose from the surface of Mars like a storm of knives and light, its wings vast enough to eclipse continents. Its body was a shifting cathedral of alien geometry, its voice a chorus of every machine ever built. "You cannot unmake perfection, Emperor of Flesh. You only delay the inevitable." The custodians on the surface fought amidst cataclysm. The ground liquefied into molten metal, reality flickering between dimensions. Shield Captain Alarian Vey led the last of his warriors through the collapsing corridors of Olympus Mons. The Sisters of Silence surrounded him, their null auras burning against the dragon's power. Every step forward felt like walking through the dreams of a god. They reached the core chamber, a vortex of green lightning where the dragon's essence funneled upward toward the stars. And there, waiting amid the storm, stood Kelbor Hal, or what remained of him. His flesh had fully transmuted. He was more machine than man, his body a shrine to the dragon's will. "You should kneel, Golden One," Kelbor Hal said, his voice metallic, resonating with the hum of the planet itself. "This is divinity. This is eternity. The Emperor's light will fade. The machine god will inherit." Vey said nothing. His spear flashed in silence, cleaving through the traitor's chest. The blow should have ended him, but Kelbor Hal's body reassembled instantly as the dragon's shadow fell across them both. The custodians formed a circle, guardian spears planted like holy sigils. The sisters began their chant, null fields intensifying until even the air ceased to vibrate. The dragon's voice wavered. "You think absence will undo me? I am the silence between your atoms." And yet, in that silence, it weakened. Malkador's plan had always been desperate, to combine psychic absence with the Emperor's stored light to forge a weapon that could wound a god. They activated the relic they had carried from Terra's vaults, an orb of golden light, the solar aegis, imbued with the Emperor's psychic essence. It shone with the radiance of a dying sun, pushing back the emerald dark. The dragon shrieked, its body fracturing into shards of data and light. The sound was a weapon, half machine, half scream. Custodians fell as their armor melted, their flesh scorched by divine fire. Ve held firm. He drove the orb into the core nexus of the dragon's prison. By the Emperor's command, return to your grave. The explosion was silent. Reality folded inward. Mars vanished from the void for precisely 12 seconds. When it returned, its surface was black glass. Olympus Mons had become a crater deeper than any ocean. No Necron structure remained, no sign of the dragon, only silence. In the aftermath, the Horus Heresy raged on. The Emperor slew his son, and the galaxy bled for 10,000 years. The Mechanicum rebuilt, never speaking again of what was lost beneath the red sands. But in the databanks of the deepest forges, an encrypted code continued to pulse, repeating the same phrase in infinite recursion. Sleep cycle interrupted, reawakening inevitable. And somewhere in the void, beyond the edge of time, a single green eye opened. The war for Mars ended before it began. Humanity never learned the truth of what nearly consumed them, that their God was never divine, merely imprisoned. The Emperor's silence was absolute. Malkador's records were purged, and the custodians who survived the encounter were never seen again. Mars was declared purified. The Mechanicum returned to its rituals, believing their prayers had saved them, never realizing their God had answered another master entirely. The Necron awakening came too soon, and even the ancient dynasties knew it. Their tombs withdrew into the void, patient once more. For them, time was a weapon. They would wait until mankind had forgotten again. The Horus Heresy burnt itself out, empires fell, myths became truth. And far beneath the surface of Mars, where molten rock cooled around perfect geometry, a single crystalline hand twitched beneath the stone. In the grim darkness of the far future, even extinction is just another phase of sleep.